we're changing the format up just a little bit today. Usually we take a pretty broad look at a topic, but today we have a very, very specific target. We're doing a deep dive into the AB-731 exam.
Right, the AI Business Transformation Certification,
Mm.
which is, it's getting a lot of attention right now.
Yeah, exactly. And if you are listening to this, you're likely staring down the barrel of this test, or maybe you're a manager trying to figure out if your team actually knows what they're doing with AI. So instead of a general chat, we are going to treat this strictly as a study session. We are focusing specifically on explaining the exam questions and the logic behind the answers.
That is honestly the best way to approach it, because the AB-731, it's not a vocabulary test. It is a role-based exam. Microsoft, and really the industry in general, they're trying to filter out the people who just know the buzzwords from the people who actually know how to deploy this stuff in a real company.
Right. So I've got a stack of practice questions here, scenarios that actually come up on the test. But before we get into the weeds, give me the landscape. What are the vitals on this exam?
Well, it's intense. You only have a 45-minute limit for the active answering portion.
Wow, 45 minutes. That seems incredibly short.
It really is, because you're looking at roughly 40 to 60 questions. So if you do the math,
That's like less than a minute per question.
Exactly. You do not have time to sit there and ponder the philosophy of machine learning. You need to read the scenario and recognize the governance principle or the technical component immediately.
And what's the passing score?
It's 700 out of 1,000. So you have a little bit of wiggle room, but not much. Oh, and it costs $99 to take.
Okay, $99, 45 minutes, 700 to pass. Let's get into the actual content then. I want to start with the technical side, sort of the engine of the AI. There's a question here that always trips people up regarding how Microsoft 365 Copilot actually organizes information.
Oh yeah, this is usually one of the very first hurdles for learners.
So the scenario asks, which component is responsible for creating a map of your organization's data to improve the relevance and accuracy of responses? Now, I mean, when I see a map of data, my instinct is to look for an answer involving a directory or maybe, I don't know, SharePoint search.
And that is exactly the common mistake. You're going to see distractors like Azure Active Directory or Microsoft Defender in the multiple choice list. But those tools do totally different things. Active Directory handles identity. It's about who you are.
Right.
And Defender handles security. The answer you're actually looking for is the semantic index.
Semantic index. Okay, why semantic? What does that actually mean in this specific context?
So think of a standard search. If you search your computer for Project Falcon, a standard search just looks for those exact words. But the semantic index, it creates a map of relationships. It knows that Project Falcon is discussed in emails between you and the CFO, and that it's related to a spreadsheet called Q3 budget. It maps the context of your work.
Ah, not just the keywords.
Right, not just the keywords.
So without the semantic index, the AI is basically just doing a glorified keyword search.
Essentially, yes. The semantic index provides the grounding in your specific business reality. That is why it's the correct answer for improving relevance and accuracy. It's the difference between asking a generic encyclopedia a question and asking your own personal assistant who knows your files.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Let's stay on the technical architecture for a second. There is another question here about large language models and this term context window.
Oh, this one is critical for understanding AI limitations.
The question asks for the definition of context window, and the options include things like the speed of generation or the number of concurrent users, but the correct answer is the maximum number of tokens the model can process in a single interaction.
Tokens.
Here's my question, though. Why does a business leader need to know about tokens? That feels like something for the developers to worry about.
It definitely feels technical, I'll give you that, but it has a massive business impact. Think of the context window as the model's short-term memory.
Okay.
If you were in a meeting and you hand the AI a 100-page contract and ask for a summary, but the context window is too small, the AI literally forgets the first 50 pages by the time it reads the end of the document.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about the system being slow. It's about actively losing your instructions.
Exactly. If that window is exceeded, the model just drops the earlier information. So for a business user, this explains why a chatbot might suddenly forget the instructions you gave it at the very start of a long conversation. It's not broken, it just ran out of memory space. That is why you have to know what that term means on the exam.
Got it. And that actually connects pretty logically to our next theme, which is trust. Because if the AI has memory limits, or if it just flat out doesn't know something, we run into the hallucination problem.
Yeah, which is the #1 barrier to corporate adoption right now.
Right. So here is the scenario for question 5. You are deploying a chatbot for your employees. You need a strategy to stop it from making things up hallucinating. The option suggests things like adjusting the creativity temperature or using a smaller model, but the answer the exam wants is implementing grounding with retrieval augmented generation. RDA.
RG, yes, RE is the gold standard right now.
Explain this to me like I am a manager who just wants the bot to stop lying to my team about our HR policies.
Okay, so an LLM by itself is really just a prediction engine.
Uh-huh.
It predicts the next word based on the entire internet.
Yeah.
It does not actually know your company's HR policy. So if an employee asks it about vacation days, it might just guess based on what it saw on Wikipedia or some other company's website.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
But RE changes that entire workflow.
Yeah.
Instead of the AI answering from its own pre-trained brain, RE forces it to look up your specific HR document first. It retrieves the facts and then generates the answer only using those facts.
So it basically turns the AI from a creative writing exercise into a reading comprehension and summary exercise.
That is perfectly put. It grounds the response in your trusted data. If the answer is not in your documents, the AI is programmed to just say, I don't know, rather than making something up. That is why REG is always the correct answer for preventing hallucinations.
Okay, but what happens when that fails? Or, when someone uses the AI for something they really shouldn't? This brings us to question 7, and honestly, this one bothers me a little bit.
The accountability question. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, the scenario involves using the Azure OpenAI service. The question asks, who is primarily accountable for the outcomes and the ethical use of the application? Is it the developer? Is it Microsoft? Or is it the customer, the organization itself?
And what does the exam say the answer is?
The exam says the answer is the organization that deploys and manages the AI solution. But hold on a second. If I buy a car from Ford and the brakes fail because of a design flaw, Ford is responsible. If I use Microsoft's AI and it gives me a biased, illegal result, why is that my fault as the customer? Shouldn't the vendor take some of the heat?
I completely understand the frustration there, but you have to look at it through what Microsoft calls the shared responsibility model. Microsoft provides the platform. They provide the engine, the infrastructure. They guarantee that the platform itself works. But you were the one deciding what data to feed it, what prompts to use, and how to act on the output.
So if I feed it bad data, I completely own the bad result.
Exactly. And even if you feed it good data, you are still responsible for verifying the output before you actually use it in a business decision. You simply cannot outsource the ethical and legal responsibility to the software provider. If your organization deploys it, your organization owns the governance.
So saying the AI did it is not going to be a valid legal defense.
Not in the real world, and definitely not on the AB-731 exam.
That is a tough pill for some companies to swallow, I bet. Let's move on to the motivation behind all this. The money. Theme 3 is business value.
The ROI.
Right. So question 2 asks you to identify a quantitative benefit of AI adoption. The list includes things like enhanced creativity, improved brand reputation, and reduced operational expenses.
This is one of those classic read the question carefully moments.
Yeah, because improved brand reputation is a benefit. Companies definitely want that. Why is it the wrong answer here?
Because the question specifically says quantitative. In the context of this exam, and really business transformation in general, quantitative or hard benefits are things you can measure with a calculator, things you can put on a balance sheet.
Actual dollar amounts?
Dollar amounts, time saved per transaction, error reduction percentages, brand reputation and creativity, those are soft benefits. They are qualitative, they're nice to have, but they are highly subjective. If the exam asks for a hard ROI, you always go for the option that talks about cutting costs or increasing measurable speed.
So reduced operational expenses per transaction is the winner because I can audit it.
Precisely. You can prove it with math.
Staying on the business strategy, question 8 asks about assessing the impact of an AI project. It asks for the 2 most critical factors. We have options like aesthetic design, alignment with key business objectives, and scalability.
Well, you can ignore the design option right away. This isn't an art class.
So we are left with alignment and scalability. Why those 2 specifically?
Think about why AI projects fail in the real world. They fail because either A, they solve a problem that nobody in leadership actually cares about, that is a lack of alignment with business objectives, or B, they work great for one person on a laptop, but they completely break when you try to roll them out to 1,000 employees. That is a lack of scalability.
So you need to solve a real strategic problem, and you need to be able to do it for everyone.
Yes. The exam is testing if you understand that AI isn't just a fun science experiment. It has to drive real organizational change. If it doesn't align with what the CEO cares about, it's not a transformation. It's just a hobby.
I like that. That distinction between a hobby and a transformation really seems to be the core of this entire certification.
It absolutely is.
Let's shift over to the rules. Theme 4 is ethics and governance. Microsoft pushes their responsible AI framework pretty heavily.
Oh, you will definitely see questions on the responsible AI principles. Guaranteed.
So question 3 asks, which principle ensures that AI systems do not reflect or amplify societal biases? The answer given is fairness.
Yeah, this one is pretty straightforward. AI models are trained on the internet, and the internet is, unfortunately, full of historical bias. The fairness principle is the active commitment to test for and mitigate those biases so you aren't, discriminating against people based on race, gender, or background when the AI makes a recommendation.
Then we have question 9, which connects two principles, transparency and accountability. The scenario is about telling users how the AI works and what its specific limitations are.
Right, this is about showing your work.
So the exam says this practice supports both transparency and accountability. I mean, I get transparency, you're being open, but how does telling someone how the bot works make you accountable?
Because you can't be held accountable for a black box. Think about it. If I deny your loan application and I just say, well, the computer said no, and I refuse to explain why, there's zero accountability there. But if I say the AI recommended denial because your debt-to-income ratio is X, now you can check my work. You can challenge it.
Ah, I see.
Transparency is the window that actually allows accountability to happen. If you hide the logic, you're dodging responsibility.
Got it. So on the exam, if you see communication about limitations, you need to link it to transparency and accountability.
Correct. They go hand in hand.
Okay, final theme. Getting organized. We know the tech, we know the risks, we know the money. Question 6 asks who actually runs this show. The scenario asks you to name the cross-functional group that leads the AI strategy.
A lot of people just guess the IT department here.
Or legal, maybe. But the answer is the AI Center of Excellence, the COE.
And this goes right back to what we said earlier about alignment. If IT runs it alone, it just becomes a tech project. If legal runs it, it just becomes a compliance project. A center of excellence brings everyone to the same table. HR, finance, operations, IT, security.
So the COE is basically the governance body that prevents total chaos.
Exactly. It sets the standards across the company. It decides which tools to buy. It ensures that the fairness and accountability principles we just talked about are actually being enforced in every department.
And finally, question 10. This one is all about the raw material, data. The question asks about data readiness in the context of Microsoft Fabric. It asks for the essential elements of being data ready.
Because you can't have AI without data.
Right. And the answers are unified data governance and utilizing a unified data lake, specifically OneLake. I want to focus on that word unified. Why is the exam so obsessed with unification? Why can't I just keep my sales data over in Salesforce and my finance data in SAP and let the AI just figure it out?
Because of the silo problem. If your data is trapped in separate rooms that are locked away from each other, the AI can't see the connections. It cannot tell you how a specific marketing campaign impacted your warehouse inventory if it can't see both of those data sets at the exact same time.
So OneLake is literally putting all the data in one room.
Virtually, yes. It creates a single logical copy of the data that reduces latency, it improves security, and most importantly for this exam, it allows the AI to reason across the entire business. If your data isn't unified, your AI is basically wearing blinders.
And what about the governance part of that answer?
That is your quality control. If you pour a bunch of garbage data into that lake, duplicate files, outdated records, errors, the AI is just going to give you faster, more confident garbage. Governance ensures the water in the lake is actually clean before the AI drinks it.
I love that analogy. So OneLake to break the silos and governance to ensure the quality. That equals data readiness.
That is the formula. Spot on. Good luck on the exam.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.